It was horrible. We had just arrived at my beach house where we planned to spend the whole week. We were looking for a good pizza place, and I had screenshotted my favorites. I opened his gallery to choose the pizza and found various pictures of him nude, as well as photos of other men. When I confronted him about it, he said he just traded pictures on Grindr for an adventure and had never met those men. But honestly, I couldn't trust him. If he wanted to only trade pictures, he could do it online. Those apps are meant to find people near you. I can't trust him. And the worst part is yet to come. He admitted he lied, and his last relationship ended for similar reasons. This behavior started long before we were together. I bought a bus ticket for him back home, and while he was on his way, I called his mom because I needed to know if he had gone out with anyone in May. I discovered he also lied about his last relationship. The first time he hit on me was in 2021, and he was still with his girlfriend. He said he spent 2 years with her, but it was actually 4.5 years. He claimed he was single for 2 years, but it had only been 6 months. I found out the whole situation was so insane that she dropped out of college to avoid seeing him. I didn't even know she studied at the same college as him. Apparently, they started together. Also, he had told me about a sexual encounter he had in mid-2021, which means he accidentally admitted to having an affair with his last girlfriend. I'm in utter disbelief. He had never done anything to make me feel even slightly suspicious. Now, I can't trust anyone anymore, and I don't know what to do. Can anyone direct me to a support group or provide any resources? I really need help at this moment. I feel so humiliated, so betrayed, and I don't know what to do. Yes, we already broke up. I want to start by expressing my deep gratitude for the support I've received. This has been the hardest time of my life, and the kindness from so many incredible people has truly made a difference. I want to clarify some questions and share where my mind is at this moment. It's been 50 hours since my life changed. I know it might sound dramatic, but there's more to the story. My previous relationship was abusive, and the man from Grindr had always told me I deserved someone who would treat me better. He promised he would help me heal and rebuild my trust in people, claiming my suffering was over and that he would do everything in his power to make me happy. Oh well. For context, I knew he was bi and that didn't bother me at all. I'm bi myself and I've never cheated and never will. We were positive and open to exploring kinks, which is why this account was originally focused on BDSM. I suggested trying things with other men, but he never showed interest, even on his own. I repeatedly asked if he was attracted to anyone else and assured him it was fine as long as he told me before pursuing anything. He always denied wanting anyone else and constantly told me how having sex with me changed his life, saying he never knew one person could satisfy him so much sexually and couldn't imagine being intimate with anyone else. Well, now, back to what happened. After he left my house, I called his mom to see if he had been at his place during certain dates when we weren't together. She said he barely went out and asked why he left our trip so suddenly. I told her everything. She was heartbroken and said she would miss me, respected me for treating him well despite everything, and wished me the best in finding someone good for me. During this conversation, I clarified some dates and realized he hadn't been single for 2 to 4 years as he claimed, but for barely 6 months. Since then, we had 3 phone calls. First call, a sob story from him. Second call, more lies. He said he had returned home and talked to his parents, but I knew that wasn't true because I had spoken with his mom. When confronted, he became defensive. He admitted to lying about an experience with a man in 2021, claiming he wanted to appear more relatable to me since I'm bi, and insisted he had never had sex with any men. Third and final call, I asked him for peace of mind now that we weren't reconciling. He clarified that his ex had dropped out of college to pursue a scholarship abroad, not because of him, and swore on his mother's life that he hadn't physically cheated on me. He said he was addicted to the attention and reassurance from the men he talked to but assured me he hadn't had physical encounters. Despite being busy with our life, I tend to believe he didn't have sex with anyone else, though I can't be certain. He begged me to come back, saying he had learned his lesson and could fix things. I told him I loved him but couldn't betray myself. The issue wasn't the pictures. I could have forgiven him if he had told me the truth. The real problem was the lies, the mistrust, and the unnecessary secrecy. I never gave him a reason to be afraid to talk to me. I shared all my dark secrets, but he remained selfish. One thing I'm certain of is that he will regret this for a long time. He will remember what we had was rare and beautiful. His desperation showed that he was a victim of his own actions. I genuinely hope he heals from his pathological lying and doesn't put any other woman through what I and his ex experienced. I wish all liars and cheaters could learn to live in truth and love. That's the path I'm following, and those are the people I'm seeking out now. Second story. I want my husband to immediately block one of his friends, Kyla, 27F. He thinks I'm overreacting and wants opinions from calm, rational people to determine if I'm being unreasonable or if a boundary has truly been crossed. My husband has a close-knit group of 8 friends from his college days, and Kyla is one of them. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to his friends, and they were all very friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently, despite being an introvert. My husband is also an introvert, and I often preferred spending time alone with him rather than in social settings, which drain my energy. His friends, especially Kyla, often remarked on how he spent less time with them since we started dating. Kyla's behavior around me has always been off. When my husband was present, she was extremely friendly. But as soon as he walked away, she acted like I didn't exist. My husband hates being touched by others, we both are neurodivergent. Yet Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him or mess with his hair. It never felt like she was flirting, but more like she was trying to annoy him. Overall, she seemed to have severe boundary issues. We got married 2 years ago, and our relationship has been great. Last week, we celebrated our 2nd wedding anniversary and invited a bunch of people over. After most guests left, his friends stayed back, and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, got tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house was, how well I took care of my husband, and how he had changed for the better since our marriage. Everyone was laughing about how much of a slob he was when he was single. Then, Jen pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up because you bet their marriage wouldn't even last 2 years." The room fell silent, and the topic quickly changed. I didn't want to spoil the mood, so I let it go, but it stuck with me. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He had noticed Jen's comment too and was ready with an explanation. He told me about what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed, he hadn't told his friends in advance. We were on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We posted our engagement pictures on Instagram, and it was a big surprise to everyone since we had only been dating for a year. When he returned and met his friends, they all congratulated him, except for Kyla. She ranted about how he was a fool to propose so quickly and implied that I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. Kyla had even bet that our marriage would end within 2 years. That was why Jen had taunted her. I was furious that my husband hadn't told me about this. I asked him if he had ever dated Kyla or had any history with her. He insisted he had never dated or hooked up with her, though she had asked him out a few times in college, which he always declined because he didn't have romantic feelings for her. I could see that since my husband has a type based on his past relationships, and Kyla is the opposite of that. I was livid about her saying such things about me, especially after we were engaged, and betting against our marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla and that she is no longer welcome at our house. He thinks I'm being too harsh over something she said almost 3 years ago. He pointed out that Kyla has been supportive of us and helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He believes she's just blunt and forthright but doesn't mean any harm. He suggested we revisit the topic in a week after I've had time to calm down. He's worried that cutting off Kyla will completely change the dynamics within his friend group. Am I the AH for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house? Do you think I am overreacting? Betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me seems like a huge betrayal. I'm also mad at my husband for not telling me about Kyla's past behavior and her interest in him during college. Am I being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also don't want to see Kyla's face again. As I told my husband's friend Kyla betting that our marriage wouldn't last more than 2 years. I was upset and asked my husband to stop talking to her because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some truly pathetic stunts to stir up issues between my husband and me. After I wrote the post, my husband tried to convince me that Kyla was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. The next day, Kyla messaged me to apologize for her comments and for not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and began warming up to her. She started inviting me to brunches and girls' nights out, and I felt included in their friend group. During one brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage wouldn't work out. Kyla explained that my husband had broken up with his long-term ex-girlfriend, Joanna, 2 months before he started dating me. While I knew that part, Kyla added that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and had sworn to stay away from dating. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date. She was surprised at how quickly we hit it off. Kyla thought I was his rebound relationship, and when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried he was making a rash decision. She didn't know enough about me or that my family is also well off, so she assumed I might be taking advantage of his vulnerable state. She apologized and said she was wrong to assume that. Over the years, she had seen how happy we were together. I appreciated her honesty, and Kyla and I became good friends, hanging out more frequently. About 2 months ago, my husband went to a conference in Seattle for 3 nights. After he returned, I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna. She claimed my husband contacted her a few months ago, and they met in Seattle during the conference. She offered to provide more proof if I wanted. I checked my husband's Instagram, but he had blocked her. I mentioned it to Kyla, who had been honest with me about Joanna, and she went into detective mode to help. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram. And we saw that Joanna had attended the same conference as my husband. Kyla suggested I ask Joanna for more proof and talk to my husband before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he admitted he did, but only briefly in the expo hall. He didn't mention it to me because it was just a quick conversation. He asked how I knew, and I told him Kyla saw her pictures at the conference and mentioned it. I messaged Joanna again for more proof, and she shared a log of messages where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots looked legit, but I didn't see any of those messages on my husband's Instagram. I talked to Kyla, unsure of what to believe. Joanna claimed they hooked up every night during the conference. But I knew it was fake because my husband and I played video games, Sea of Thieves, for 2 to 3 hours each night after dinner. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play, she was lying. I told my husband about the incident, and he said I should have come to him sooner. He assured me he had gone no contact with Joanna since they broke up and just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone to verify he had blocked her everywhere, but I trusted him. Joanna likely ran into him and decided to make up a story to cause trouble. That weekend, we told our friends about Joanna's fake messages. Kyla also shared what happened, but she accidentally let slip that it was lucky we played video games before sleeping. I never told Kyla about the video game details. It took me until I got home to connect the dots. I told my husband, and he confronted Kyla. She denied it, claiming I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I didn't remember doing that. We decided to distance ourselves from Kyla. She has called me multiple times to meet up, but I make excuses that I'm busy. I don't know why she did it, but at this point, I'm not interested. We decided to just see her at social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid that she played me for a fool and regret going to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it's suspicious that Kyla brought up Joanna just when Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I don't know her intentions, but I'm mad enough to avoid her. I wish I had real proof that she was behind the messages so I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband, but I'm glad he and I are on the same page now. Third story. To get straight to the point, my current girlfriend is upset with me. Because I deleted old from an ex-girlfriend from 14 years ago without letting her see them. Recently, while cleaning out my closet, I found my old iPod Touch from 2010. Stumbling upon it was like discovering a time capsule, so we excitedly hooked it up to see what 2010 to 2013 me was up to. We had a good time laughing at the tall-tees, mall-bought and extremely fake bling, oh god, help me, and fitted caps I wore back then. While going through the pictures together, we stumbled across some photos from an old relationship that I had forgotten were on there. Trying not to make a big deal of it, I said, "Oh shit," turned the iPod away from her, and deleted the pictures, which I thought she would understand. Was I wrong? At first, she playfully asked to see them, but I told her no, explaining that she knows it's inappropriate. Things quickly went south from there. She started accusing me of hiding things, saying she just wanted to see what the ex looked like and that it was no big deal. Eventually, she started crying. I told her the pictures were from 14 years ago and explained that if I showed her my ex's nudes, what's to stop her from thinking I wouldn't show her nudes to someone else if they complained enough? Now she's accusing me of calling her a bitch, belittling her, and already thinking of the next woman. Things have seriously snowballed, and I've never seen this weirdly jealous and nosy side of her before. We've been together for about 6 months but have been on again, off again friends with benefits for about 2 years. She knows I do not have patience for silly, childish behavior like this, so I kicked her out of my apartment. She called me an asshole and said she needed to think about our relationship. I told her if she wants to break up over nonsense like this, then we shouldn't have gotten together in the first place. I know I was right for not showing her the pictures and believe her tears were a manipulation tactic, but I'm absolutely stumped as to why she would try so hard to see them. I'm hoping this sub can provide some insight into this utter madness. After not talking for a couple of days, she finally texted me, asking why I hadn't called or texted her. I told her the truth. I was mad at her and trying to decide if I wanted to continue the relationship. The way our good time turned into pure madness reminded me of all the shit I went through with my mother as a teen. And I don't want to deal with that ever again. I had a very emotionally abusive mom who would constantly cause fights over literally nothing, think DVDs, staple guns, tape measures, etc. And then kick me out of the house to show me whose goddamn house this is. So, I have an extremely low tolerance for people starting fights over petty nonsense. To top it all off, my mom has since passed away, adding another layer to things. But I've never tried to make my issues anyone else's problem. I've told her about my mother before, so she knew all this. She told me she didn't mean to make me feel that way, but my refusal to show her the pictures and turning away while deleting nudes made her feel like I was hiding things and rejecting her. I immediately called BS because I told her we were going to keep looking through the iPod. I was just deleting my ex's nudes. She damn well knows it. In the 2+ years we've known each other, I've never given her any reason whatsoever to doubt me or think I'm a liar. Eventually, I got tired of texting and tried to call her. She rejected the call, saying she wasn't ready to speak yet. I told her I was done texting, so she should call me when she's ready to talk, and then I stopped replying. She started sending me angrier and angrier messages when I wouldn't reply. Fuck you. This is controlling. What the fuck's wrong with texting? Go fuck your redheaded bitch. My ex in the pictures was a redhead and has been out of my life for over a decade. She then sent a picture of an action figure that had been broken apart. I immediately knew who it was. Prison Mike. It was Prison Mike. He was innocent in all this. You see, much like myself and a lot of you, she loves The Office. For her birthday this year, I hunted down a 3D printed Prison Mike 1/12 scale head and little mug, combined it with a Two-Face figure's body, and spent a week painting them both. I then printed out a backdrop of the conference room, as well as pictures of the main cast, except Andy, I hate him, and made a diorama with standees of them in it for the Prison Mike figure. All combined, it took about 2 weeks to make, but it was fun. When I gave it to her, she went nuts, hugging me, kissing me, calling me sweet, and saying it was one of the most thoughtful things anyone had ever given her. And now, she's apparently taken a hammer to it. I'm done. I don't know what the hell her problem is, and like Phil Collins, I don't care anymore. Property destruction, whether hers or mine, for any reason, especially revenge, is automatically game over for me. I'm shocked, annoyed, and confused, but thank you all for your interest and responses. And please, pour one out for Prison Mike, he was truly de belle of de ball. Fourth story. This might be long ick, I'm feeling a lot. So me, 31M gay, and my fiancé, 32M bi, have been together for 9 years, engaged for 1. We're meant to get married in 2 months. My time with him has been perfect, literally zero complaints. Honestly, I didn't think I'd find someone who got me the way he does. Then the world remembered it hates me and decided to f my shit up since I had it too good for too long. Last week my fiancé sat me down and told me he wanted to discuss something with me and to keep an open mind. Sure. He said since we're getting married he wanted to know if I would be okay with him having one night where he could sleep with a woman. My heart broke instantly. My dreams and hopes and plans vanished in an instant, and the marriage I was eager to begin was dead. At the very beginning of our relationship, when he asked to be exclusive, I told him there will never be anyone else in our life. Just us. No one's coming into our bedroom, there will be no fantasies, no Eiffel Towers, nothing. I made it clear if he ever asked me for anything of the sort, the relationship was over immediately, there will be no conversation about it, it's done. He agreed. He said monogamy was the only thing for him and he doesn't want anyone else. Before I keep going, I do want to explain why I am the way I am. I won't give a lot of details, actually almost none, but I'll give enough to understand, hopefully. Between the ages of 8 and 14 I was SA'd a lot by really my only friend at the time. When I was 8 he was 15. Only other kid on the street. My mother was a drug addict and cheated on my father constantly, so she didn't notice anything. My dad was rarely home because his wife was difficult to be around, and I was a kid who stayed in my room all the time, so he wouldn't have noticed anything concerning anyway. I tried to tell my mother once, but I couldn't even say it before I was yelled at and told to get out of her room, and I never tried to bring it up again. As I got older, I realized why my dad was never there and why my mom didn't question the teen taking me out for hours. When I got home, I just wanted to be alone in my room. I put all of my childhood issues on cheating. As a result of my difficult childhood, I now struggle with borderline personality, anxiety, panic attacks, and depression whenever I hear people screaming. Basically, I have a lot of issues. After being with my fiancé for about a year and a half, I talked to him about my past and why I feel the way I do about things, and he was very understanding. Very comforting. Despite it being my story, I had to wipe his tears away a few times. I know he cares for me, I know he loves me and wants to spend our forever together. Back to present day, I am in a hotel room alone. Everyone I've told this to has said I'm crazy and stupid and need therapy. They don't understand how I can throw it all away over my partner being honest and open with me about something. He didn't actually cheat, he just wants to, lol. He has said he won't do it. He needs me more than any feeling a woman can give him. I am his everything. He's called me twice since I started typing this and messaged me really sweet things, so I'm at a point where I don't know what I'm doing. I look at the future and I see him. My entire adult life I've had the mentality of, if they want to cheat they will, so he's asking me now. And if I say no, he will eventually do it anyway but won't tell me next time. That is where my decision to leave comes from. He will grow to resent me for denying him this thing he wants. I don't want to be that person 30 years from now finding out my husband has had 50 affairs during our marriage with a bunch of women. When I am with someone, I'm with them. I don't look at other people, I don't entertain advances anyone makes towards me, I don't flirt with anyone else. I'm devoted in every way. People are making me feel crazy for wanting the same energy given back to me. I can't wrap my head around him wanting to kiss someone else, to be an inch away from him and smile and then start I don't want to think about it. But it's all I'm thinking about. It's been almost 8 days since I left and it's my only thought. I am losing my mind in a shitty hotel room, thinking about the guy I love fucking some random woman who doesn't exist. I'm lost. What to do? I do want to say how amazing he is. He buys me flowers every Friday. He stands up for me when no one else does. He looks for me in every room. He makes me feel like I matter. He makes my grayest days bright and clear, and the smile I used to fake isn't fake anymore. He has never judged me for the things I do. He's never made me feel bad for having off days. He just makes me feel loved. My birthday was last month and he made me a book filled with pictures of us. He's taken over the years, with the last page being blank so he can add our wedding picture eventually. Above each picture was what he was thinking when he took it, and below is how he was feeling at the time. Part of being me is I need constant reassurance that he does love me, so I ask him those things a lot. It means everything to me and it's my favorite thing I own. I'm just trying to say he really is great despite this one thing. He said he'll do anything for me to come back. We can push the wedding back and just work on us, or we can call it off completely and just be together. He will never bring it up again and he's deeply sorry he ever wanted to do it, and I believe him. Time changes people though. I just want an unbiased opinion from someone whose life will not change whatsoever by my decision. They tend to be more truthful. I love him, and when I look at pictures of him I hear wedding bells. And I see the house he wants to buy with me and the 2 kids he wants to adopt at some point. I don't want the rehashed when trust is gone, it doesn't come back, or you know the answer. Leave. I do trust him. I don't trust the things I'm telling myself over and over about what may happen in the future. He has never given me reason to not trust him, but I don't know. Okay, if anyone actually cares about the outcome, but my original plan was to talk to him today. Bring up therapy. Maybe go back to our apartment or just stay for the rest of my hotel reservation. That did not happen. I folded. I got Dunkus Sunday night. He called me about 10:30ish and I told him where I was BC. He said he wanted to explain in person. Sober me would have said no, say that shit over the phone. Drunk me is a hoe. He came over, he started explaining, but honestly nail me to a cross, I will die for the sins I know every single one of you would commit. If you could see his face, dice, we did shit. After that he did explain. His best friend, who's always had issues with me, has been trying to convince him for months if he doesn't sleep with a woman again, he will end up cheating on me in the future. He didn't believe at first, but after a few months his friend wore him down. I know he's not lying. He showed me texts going back to February, every so often his friend bringing it up. His friend has always not liked me. I don't think he's okay with my fiancé being bi. First time he introduced me to his friends, his best friend was very standoffish, didn't interact with me. At one point someone asked if I was into hiking. I am, and she said best friend's name is also really into it. I said that's cool, do you know any good spots since I just moved here and haven't found any yet? He said no and started talking to someone else. Okay. Sure. Dick. Bunch of other little shit over the years, like always bringing up his ex-GFs in front of me, blah blah, you get the gist. I think he knew I'd leave if my fiancé asked me for this. My fiancé said he doesn't want to do it and he wanted me to say no, and we'd move on. Wedding still on hold. I have the ring back, it's on a chain around my neck. I want therapy still with him. Too many of you convinced me in private DMs with your personal stories about how helpful it was in your relationships. You wore me down. I also want to know what a paid professional thinks about his best friend. Honestly, I'm done with him.